What's going on, guys? Ryno Bones here with a quick unboxing and review thing. Today I've got the N940P from NexiGo. This is not a sponsored video, and I did buy this with my own funds. Nobody's watching this video before I post it to YouTube, so I can say whatever I want. So the N940P is an updated version of the N940, which I reviewed several months ago. I had been using that one at work for, I guess, 8 months now, and I really like it. So at the end of the school year, I brought it home, and I thought, I want to have something even better to use when I go back to work, and I went ahead and bought the upgraded model. And the big upgrade here is not only does it have better speakers and a better sensor, but it's got this doodad right here. This is a remote. I can control this camera from pretty much anywhere in my classroom. It's going to be really cool. And I'm going to demonstrate that here in a few minutes, using the remote and stuff. It also has a 5 megapixel sensor. It's got a couple of privacy shields here. They are slightly different and slightly larger than the ones that come with the N940. User manual. The camera itself. You can see it is slightly different. It does have the 2 microphone places right there. On the bottom, it does have the mount to put this on a tripod. And again, it can turn every which way. Just a side-by-side real quick. N940 on top, 940p down here at the bottom. Also included with the N940p is this USB-C adapter. And the last thing out of the box, we got a remote control. Got a power button, we've got a mute button, we've got home and focus. You can also change the direction that it's pointing ever so slightly. Got a zoom here, volume up, volume down. We can flip it in the camera, which is pretty stinking cool. And there's the zoom out button. So what do you get with the NexiGo N940P? Well, you get a Sony sensor. This is a 5 megapixel camera here. It is capable of recording at 2K 30 frames per second and 1080p at 60 frames per second. It actually looks really good, especially after a firmware update, which I'm going to get into here in a couple of minutes. Overall, the picture quality is pretty good. 1080p at 30 frames per second is where all of the magic happens. So what you're seeing right now, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the NexiGo here. What you're seeing right now is the default image after a firmware update. The firmware update is an absolute necessity because out of the box, this does not usually look this good. There's usually a lot of really hot spots. The audio that you would get out of this is really choppy, but they've got a firmware update that totally fixes all of those problems. I was not able to use this remote in OBS until I got the firmware update. I was able to use the remote in the NexiGo app and in Google Meet, but not OBS. And really, if I'm going to be using this as a streaming camera, I would need that functionality, for things. So as I usually like to do, I will change over to a quick filter here in 3, 2, 1. And this is the image you can expect if you pop on a LUT. I think it looks pretty good. Basically, all you got to do is adjust the white balance and adjust the saturation, and you get colors and everything pretty much as good as you get from a DSLR. Now, I am in a very well-lit room right now. I do have a couple of lights that are lighting up the background, and I've got one light that's kind of overhead here that's shining right on me. I also have a little bitty light that's shining on my belly, so I don't have any weird shadows until I put my hands right there. Can you see the shadows? There's some shadows right there, yeah. So right now you are seeing the 2K image 30 frames per second. I'm going to switch that up real quick, get us some 1080p at 60 frames per second. So here we are, 1080p at 60 frames per second. What do you think? It's still pretty much the same color palette, nothing changed there. That's one of the nice things about this, is you can switch through the resolutions, and it's still going to keep this fairly neutral color scale, and you'll be able to mess with this in OBS settings or in your editing program. Let's switch it down to 1080p at 30 frames per second, and I'll give this a little try. Here we are at 1080p, 30 frames per second, and we can get into some of the remote features. So yeah, I'm going to zoom in here. I'm getting closer. I'm getting so close. I'm going to go back out. There we go. You can also sort of pan to the side. A little bit slow, but it gets the job done. If I want to get a little more on that side, I push the other button, and I push the little home button there to return me back to the normal place. I can also use the flip button here. It kind of rotates me around the screen. I am actually going to have to look at that and make sure I end up back where it is, so hold on. Oh, there I go. Now I'm back to where I started. You can adjust the volume of the microphones. Right now I am not using those microphones. Obviously, I'm using my real microphone here, but it works pretty good. Let's test that out. Still 1080p, still 30 frames per second, only now you're hearing the audio coming out of the microphone that's built into the N940P. I can turn that up a little bit, and now I am definitely peaking, but I can turn that back down, and now it's more reasonable level. One other thing I can do here is that was pretty neat. I like the mute button. Alright, so here's a little bit of the streaming experience. I am back on my Minecraft world, and yeah, I'm feeling nice and frisky. Let's go ahead and find some stuff to murder, because that's what you do in Minecraft. All about the murder. Give me some wood. I just want that one piece of wood. I like that horse. Look at that thing. So slow, so angry. Reminds me of me. I don't like to be reminded of me. Alright, let's go to my inventory. Let's actually do some crafting here. Let's see, I want to make one of these. Yes. Excellent. I need some sticks. Alright, so put that thing down there. Make myself a sword so I can more easily murder the animals. Get a pickaxe there going so I can, you know, mine or something. I don't know. I think that's what you're supposed to do. As I've alluded to a couple of times now, there is a firmware update for this device. If you do have this device and you're not very satisfied with it, contact the company to get the firmware, because the firmware absolutely fixed all of the issues I was having. There was a lot of overexposure, especially on like my forehead and my cheeks and my nose. It looked really bizarre. The audio was clipping out for no apparent reason whatsoever. I had it even turned down in OBS, and it was still like right there in the red as much as it could go. It was a little bit absurd. I was not able to use the remote in OBS. I was not able to use the remote in any software except the NexiGo software. And the firmware update fixed every single one of those problems. So I advise you to get the firmware update if you got this camera. As usual, I'm going to be leaving a link in the description, so be sure to check that out if you think this is going to suit your needs. And as always, like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I will see you all later. Bye! Maybe, just maybe, I've got the file on here. I got the file here. Now I'll send it to that computer. Alright, I've got my skin uploaded. Now let's do some streaming.